CenterPoint allows you to send certain documents via email directly from the software. Those documents include billing statements, customer invoices, receipts, ACH payment advices, purchase orders, and sales orders. Sending purchase orders and sales orders does require the purchase of those additional modules. In order for CenterPoint to be able to send any documents via an email, you must first set up a one-time preference to configure your email settings. This is done by going to File and Preferences. On the Preferences screen, we'll select the section for Email Setup and then the setting called Email Setup. And then we'll go to the Database tab. You will at first, so mine's already filled in automatically, but when you first come to this screen, it'll be blank. And the first thing you'll want to do is fill in the to from email address and hit tab on that field. That will allow CenterPoint to try and communicate with the email server to determine the server name and port if it can. You'll still want to verify that information. The server is the SMTP or Simple Mail Transfer Protocol server through which your outgoing email is routed. If you do not use a server internally, the server is your IP provider's mail server. You will want to consult with your IT administrator for the correct settings. If you are using a free email service such as Gmail, Outlook, Yahoo, AOL, or another similar service, you can usually find the correct settings in their help documentation. Now, depending on what port is selected, will determine whether or not Require Secure Connection is set to yes or no. If it is set to port 25, then that Require Secure Connection is usually no. If it is set to 465 or 587, the Require Secure Connection is usually yes. You'll also determine whether or not your email service requires you to log in. If it does, then you'll set this to yes, and you'll need to enter in the username and password for your email service. If no, then these fields will be grayed out. Initially, the Ignore Certificate Issues is set to not set, but that is actually defaulting to no. If you do get a certificate issue when we run a test on the email, you'll want to make sure that you try and resolve that certificate issue outside of CenterPoint. If you can't resolve it outside of CenterPoint, then you can come in here and set this to yes, but we'd only want you to do that after you've exhausted other means of resolving that certificate issue. The timeout is always set to 30 seconds, and if you get an error when you do the test that your service has timed out, you may just need to increase that to something else. When you're done entering in all your settings, you'll hit the test, and if all of the settings are correct, then you'll receive a confirmation on the screen, and you'll receive an email that'll be sent to this email address or the email address that you entered into that box. If the email settings are not correct, then you'll receive an error that will hopefully point you in the right direction to resolving the issue. When you're done, you'll click Save. Now, before I hit Save, I want you to notice underneath the email setup preferences that there are preferences for those individual documents that can be sent via email. We do have separate videos on how to email out those different documents that will talk about those other settings. This particular setting applies to emailing all documents. So this would need to come first, and then you would set the other settings. And you can find out the information on those other settings in those videos.